Chasing Tales, Episode 10, Win, Lose, or Draw.
The tale has begun. What will Kevin do now he knows the truth?
Aislinn stands in the meat-packing house. He bends over the ashes of Martin's wings and collects them in a tiny vial. He ports back to Pink's. He scouts out a space for the vial in her little trophy case. He sets it down gently. He waves his hand and a label appears. 1946. Martin. Demon. Killed in self-defense. He nods his head and walks out of the apartment into the sunlight of Cloud City.
Well, Pink, I don't get the attraction, but I brought you another trophy.
Pink shifts in her chair. She looks at the clock on the table. She rises and moves behind the screen to change.
So, what happens next?
Pink continues while changing.
See, this back and forth of growing resentment really started to put a strain on our relationship. Soon, she started drugging me at night.
Since Helga had been rescued, they had a nightly ritual. They drank tea, had a biscuit, and talked about their day.
Drink your tea, Helga. Yeah, we had a good day today, didn't we? 14 patrons. Yeah, you did well. You seem to be good with the customers. Magic practice is coming along. What have you mastered now? 6 spells?
Helga nodded, a cookie in her mouth. She sure had blossomed. To Brenna, the 8 years she had been here had flown. Now Helga was a young woman, and things would get complicated. Rissa sat invisibly in the room with them. She examined her claws out of boredom.
You know, I think they only come to see pretty little Helga.
Rissa said to Brenna, though the words were less heard than absorbed. As she spoke, the capital letters were inflected by Rissa flapping Helga's hair. Helga grabbed at her hair with a suspicious look around.
Hey.
So many young men come to see her, buying things they'll never use just to get a look, a feel for her magic.
Brenna balled her skirt in a fist under her apron. Rissa's words were really pushing her buttons. Helga finished her tea and handed Brenna the cup. Brenna swished it around until the tea leaves had formed a picture in her mind. Fish. Interesting. Helga's eyes grew heavy. It was time for her to sleep. She climbed into the bed and laid down. Brenna sat peering at her over the book, waiting to see when she was in fact asleep.
So pretty. Your replacement is almost ready, Brenna.
Rissa commented to Brenna. Brenna swept her hand over a page in the grimoire, the book on the stand. She read it quietly to herself, filling the inkwell in her tattoo rig. She hovered over Helga, tapping ink into her skin. When morning came, it was still dark out. Groggily, Helga slipped out of bed and went to work on breakfast. She could have swore that the hot rolls brought in more customers than the medicine. She whipped the towel off of the proofing pan sitting on the stove and put them in the oven after a brush of egg. She heated water and tea and fried ham for Brenna. After they were done, she sat at a table with a rolled butter and a cup of tea, studying from the spell book and herbal scribblings.
So, why is she tattooing you?
I didn't know at the time, but I know now she was tattooing the words of the spell into my skin. Unfortunately, you can't see them. The ink was specially formulated to be invisible, so I couldn't undo the damn thing myself.
So how long did this go on?
It must have lasted several nights in a row. I only started to wake up near the end of the process.
Helga slowly climbed into consciousness. She lay on her bed face down. She tried to move, but found she couldn't. She did her best not to panic. She steadied her breathing and relaxed as much as she could. She noticed Brenna shuffling around. The candlelight beamed from the book on the stand at the end of her cot. Brenna hovered over with her tattoo rig that she had been working on. Soon there was a tapping of ink to skin. Thousands of tiny pricks. Brenna wiped with a rough towel. Helga could only feel the presence. Brenna moved away to refill the reservoir. The candlelight glinted in Helga's eyes. She was awake. Brenna noticed and began to sing a sleep well. She supposed the herbs couldn't keep her asleep long now. She'd dosed her so many nights in a row it was bound to happen, but it was nearly done now. She tapped into the night by candlelight, building up a curse to end all curses. The door swings open. Jack slides in the room and he looks around, notices clothes over the screen.
He's here.
She smooths her simple soft yellow shirt dress and tightens the belt.
Well, what do you think?
The talk is tonight, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Thanks, I'll need it.
Jack gently pulls up Kevin.
Okay, you'll have to come back. Pink has something to do.
What? Already? Okay.
Kevin gets up and folds his notebook, places it in his pocket.
I'll be back soon. I'm invested now.
Okay, arrange it with Jack.
Pink walks out into the bar, spotting Tex. He kisses her cheek and he turns and guides her out of the building. They walk from the club to the apartment. It's unseasonably warm for January, even here in Houston. It feels like a spring night. The moon is rising and full. A breeze blows through the trees that line the street.
Tex,
Yes?
what are we relationship-wise?
This is kinda out of the blue.
I just want to know where we stand.
Tex stops her in the middle of the sidewalk and grabs her gently by the shoulders. He scans her softened face in the half-light.
Things were different, well, I'd marry you.
What things?
Job. You don't want to live this kind of life always worrying where I'll be or how long I'll be gone. Or if I'll make it home. And how will you be a devoted wife if you have to work all the time? What would you do with the club?
I suppose I could sell the club.
Spy work would have to stop too.
It was something she wanted, being his wife. He was right, though. What kind of life would that be? And what about the syndicate? When was she going to explain it to him? And they didn't have that kind of time to live a married life anyway. It was mute. Once back at his place, she made him some dinner. They ate silently. They climbed into bed, and he cuddled her, holding her more tightly than usual.
I do love you. Understand that, don't you?
She leaned on her elbow.
That may be the first time you've said that to me.
That's not the response I was hoping for.
Oh, Tex, I love you too.
She scooches back down into the cradle of his shoulder and wraps her arm around him. He lay there listening to her fall asleep, thinking about it. She was right. He never had said it. If he were honest, he'd been in love with her for a long time. He just always felt he couldn't fully know her. Something about her seemed always out of his reach. In Farrell's, Rissa sits impatiently, watching Sprex write in a small notebook.
Are you going to help me or not, Sprex?
Sprex grins. He strokes his gazelle horns, musing to himself.
You know, I'm not so sure. I'm enjoying watching you flounder around like you know what you're doing.
Hotheads, as always. Rissa stands suddenly and swipes her hand to slap him. He catches her at the wrist.
I warn you, lass. I'll end you myself if you don't settle down.
She resigns to behave, and she pouts to herself.
Well, if I don't know what I'm doing, enlighten me, O wise one.
Now that's more like it. Her boyfriend is pretty vulnerable. He's not really aware of her other life. You need to force her hand. Make her show herself. Separate her from Tix. I know how much you love her particular flavor of suffering. It's ironic when you think about it. If you could have just picked someone else, she wouldn't have been a thorn in your side for so long.
Rissa fumes with his reminder that this whole thing was her fault. Sprex pushes paper across the table.
This is where she'll be. And when. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
She snatches up the paper and storms off. He drinks another glass and waves down Glenna, his latest glowing darling. Her white wings are tinged pink at the ends. It makes her seem even more fresh-faced and innocent. He pulls her down by the chain attached to her disruption collar. He kisses her violently. She squeals in pain when he bites her lip. Her pale skin glows against the blood trickling out of the corner of her mouth. She pours him a drink and scoots out of his reach. Tex and Pink sit at the breakfast table. The schematics for the building they're breaking into later is spread out with the rest of the dossier. Tex chews on some bacon and watches her. A tendril of blonde hair falls into her face as she reads from the folder. Her gray eyes scan the page and flit to another for a second. She's so serious, she's so focused. She wipes her mouth with the napkin and stands to come around the table to look at schematics. She traces the path with her finger. She nods and goes back to her seat.
So you think that's the best way to go in?
There are only 2 guards this way. What if instead of breaking in, we just walk in?
Broad daylight?
Why not? Look, you could put on white coveralls and carry a ladder and a tool bag, and no one will be the wiser. We just have to look like we belong there. Although, if it makes you feel better, we could go in with the janitorial crew. They come in at 6:30 after everyone else leaves.
I do like that idea better. I'll call Sydney. She'll get us set up.
Okay, I have to stop by the club for a bit. Give me a couple of hours and I'll check back in.
Pink leans down, kissing Tex.
Okay, be careful. I'll see you later.
Pink walks back to her apartment building. She could hear laughing from Mrs. Pye's place. She knocks on the door.
Oh, hello, Pink.
Miss Pye, are you alright?
Oh, yes, dear. I'm sorry, Jack has been with me most of the time you were gone. He's here, but the poor dear is knackered.
Come on, Charlotte, time to go home.
Oh, let him sleep, Pink. He'll be fine here.
Will you take him back to my place when he's up?
I'll take care of him, lovey. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. We were just having such a good time.
Pink looks around the room. There are plates with food, empty bottles, and cups of tea. A multi-day bender definitely happened here. She shakes her head and shrugs.
All right.
She leaves Jack right where he is. Pink walks out and up the stairs. Her apartment's a disaster. Everything seems out of place. She grumbles. Aislinn appears.
Oh, see what good he's been. He's been with Miss Pye all this time.
Who? Jacques?
Who else? I just went by her place and he was passed out. Well, whatever the case, maybe it's time to let him go.
Pink shrugs.
So what are you gonna do?
Pink looks at the large fish tank.
Whatever comes natural, I suspect.
She turns and gets busy cleaning. It doesn't take long, and she's ready to go back to her place in Haven in the Clouds. Aislinn opens up a portal.
What will happen to naughty Jacques? Will Ressa succeed in her plot to out Pink? Will they finish their mission for the Book of Fire? Stay tuned for episode 11 of Chasing Tales. Secrets out.